So I'm going to give you what I think is the core of this answer, and I'm going to give you some peripherals. So the core is, by the middle of the 2nd century, it is just, in my opinion, undoubted that we have a core collection of New Testament books that are viewed as scripture alongside the Old Testament. I mean, Justin Martyr just tells us this. He tells us about early Christian worship. He's writing around 150. He tells us about early Christian worship services and that the Gospels are read alongside the Old Testament as scripture, and they preach from them. I mean, there's just, you can't escape this.
Which doesn't mean it starts in the 2nd century. It means it's already done.
Correct. And Justin Martyr doesn't mention this as an idea. He doesn't say, have you considered doing this? No, he mentions it as this is what people do, and presumably been doing for a while. And then we have numerous other places in the Apostolic Fathers. And remember, the Apostolic Fathers is not the apostles, it's the writings around 1 to 150. Numerous times they cite New Testament books as scripture, using the same terminology. It is written, gegraptai or graphe, scripture. They use the same terminology that we use for the Old Testament. And so I don't think there's any way around that there's a good number of these books used as scripture, certainly by the middle of the 2nd century. But then you can go back even further, because in 2 Peter, he quotes Paul's letters as scripture right alongside the Old Testament. And so when were books being used as scripture alongside the Old Testament? Well, if you take the traditional date for 2 Peter, which would be somewhere in the mid-60s, then you've got, by the mid-60s, a collection of Paul's writings already viewed as scripture alongside the Old Testament. So it's not even 2nd century, if you want to get technical, it's 1st century. Now, modern scholars will say, yeah, but 2 Peter's a forgery, was written in the 2nd century, and I'm not going to get into that debate here, but at least there's some internal evidence within the New Testament this is happening even before the 1st century was over.
Yeah.
Good.